Well, we're now crossing from the Anambra 2024 Economic Summit to Abuja now, where the remains of the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, have touched down after being flown this morning from Lagos. The body is at the moment being handed over to the military authority for a continuation of his last rites. Let's tune in.
Good afternoon and welcome. Well, the remains of the late Chief of Army Staff have been seen for the first time in the Federal Capital Territory, and that's because he just arrived from Lagos, where the reports from the Nigerian Army and came in through NAF 9. Ready to make its last journey home. And let's not forget that these shots, they say it's going to be a very brief military ceremony, kicks off the burial protocols and other activities that will be taking place. Well, from here, we hear that later in the day, there will be a service of songs at the Nigerian Army headquarters garrison at the Mogadishu cantonment. But before then, we see very senior officers of the Nigerian Armed Forces, particularly generals from the Nigerian serving as pale bearers, leaving the casket and of course bringing him before this battalion of soldiers here willing to pay their last respects. Well, let's let you know that the guards here have been on parade since the last 1 hour thereabouts, expectant of the arrival of the late Chief of Army Staff's remains. Let's remind you that the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, did pass away on the 5th of November 2024. And before then, he has served for the last 19 months. He served as the Chief of Army Staff of Nigeria from June 2023, when he was appointed alongside other security chiefs by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to succeed Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya. And as his remains makes its way to the front of the parade, being led by some of his men who served with him at various formations. Now, some of them very senior generals, or precisely, I must say, it has been carried by major generals, very visible amongst them. The chief leading the parade. And was commissioned as a second lieutenant on the 19th of September 1992 to the Nigerian Infantry Corps. And between 1992 and 1995, Lagbaja was platoon commander of the 93 Battalion. And from 1995 to 2001, he was platoon commander of the 72 Special Forces Battalion. Well, in 2001, Lagbaja obtained a bachelor's degree in geography from the Nigerian Defense Academy, and he studied strategic studies at the U.S. Army War College. at the master's level. Now, he was an instructor at the Nigerian Defense Academy from 2001 to 2004. And at the time, Lagbaja was a Grade 2 staff officer in charge of peacekeeping at the Army Headquarters Department of Army Training and Operations. And then he was a directing staff at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Jaji, from 2006 to 2009. And so permit me to say, well, for some of these officers, they definitely have served with him for this number of years. Well, many of them obeying his commands, all of them obeying his commands in the last 19 years. And right now, they have been joined by their colleagues in the other arms of the Nigerian Armed Forces, from the Navy and also from the Air Force, to pay their last respect as the general begins his journey in the Federal Capital Territory to interment. We're still looking at the profile of the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Abiodun Lagbaja. In 2009, he became Deputy Chief of Staff at Headquarters 81 Division, and subsequently he became Commanding Officer at the 72 Special Forces Battalion Makodi from 2012 to 2013 and 2014 to 2015. Well, in 2016, he was named the Chief of Staff at the Headquarters 8th Task Force Division, Mungunu. It's a very solemn ceremony here, receiving perhaps one of the last and the parade gets to the front, where compliments will be paid by other members of the garrison. General Lagbaja participated in Operation Harmony 4 in Bakassi Peninsula, also the United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Operation Zaki, internal security operation in Benue State, Operation Lafia Dole, Operation Misa, and very recently, just before he became Chief of Army Staff, he also participated at the Operation Udoka, which is an internal security operation in Southeast Nigeria.
Did mention this ceremony is a very solemn ceremony. All bearers moving the remains of our dearly departed.
And just a couple of minutes ago, we listened to the Nigerian national anthem. And after that, A very solemn ceremony as the remains makes its way a very short journey to the awaiting ambulance, which is going to convey it from the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport here in Abuja to perhaps a resting place until it is ready to be interred.
I did mention earlier, solemn guard of honor ceremony is being streamed live on several media platforms, including Arise Television, Channels Television, Television Continental, and several other channels.
And the guard of honor here
Streamed on Nigerian Army platforms,
playing the very popular
this solemn
tune, God be with you till we meet again.
the acting chief of army staff.
And we see the acting chief of army staff leading the procession at this point.
Of our dearly departed
Right behind the remains of the chief of army staff.
procession, in last respects to our dearly departed chief of army staff, Lieutenant General T. Lagbaja'S, Nigerian Army Leader. We are informed that our dearly departed chief of army staff was appointed chief of army staff in June 2023, held the appointment chief of army staff for a total of 1 year and 4 months, leading the Nigerian Army several honors across various theaters of operation. Our dearly departed chief of army staff, an esteemed infantry general of exceptional quality, renowned for his unwavering patriotism and love for country, has given his all. He brought honor to the Nigerian Army across numerous theaters of operation. It is said that every soul must taste death, and one day return to its today.
And so we see the last
Chief of Army Staff,
steps taken to the ambulance.
has taken a vow. The reason we are all gathered here with very heavy hearts to begin to pay
Some of his
honor
classmates
to
serving as pale bearers
gentlemen senior
as the
officer of
casket
excellence who died
approaches
in very active service
the ambulance.
to fatherland and humanity. Would like to specially request that the service of songs in honor of our dearly departed Chief of Army Staff.
And so as we
Will be
begin
taking
to
place about 1700 Army headquarters,
wrap up these ceremonies,
garrison.
well, let's remind you that
Canton.
some other burial arrangements includes a service of songs that will be taking place later today. And then tomorrow there will be a funeral service at the Economical Center before he will be taken to the National Military Cemetery where his remains will be interred. But until then, trust me, it's going to be a very solemn experience. But particularly for these gentlemen officers who have lived, served, fought behind the general, who was an infantry officer. And we can see the casket being taken into the ambulance.
May I please request cameramen not to impede?
From where it will make his journey back into the city.
Of our dearly departed Chief of Army Staff. Please, cameramen, do well not to impede.
A very solemn ceremony, one which definitely will leave memories in the hearts of some of these officers who, as we said before,
The Acting Chief of Army Staff.
Have lived, some of them trained,
Chief Mona.
many of them mentored
Principal Staff Officers from Defense
by the
and Services
gentleman
Headquarters.
officer when he was alive.
Corps Commanders, General Officers Commanding, very senior officers, to pay their last respects, begin to pay their last respects at this guard of
Ladies and gentlemen,
honor ceremony.
we see the officers paying their last respect.
The troops of Guards Brigade Nigerian Army. Several of us
And perhaps this wraps up activities for now
motion
as we see the motorcade
gradually making
leaving, being led into the city
inviting all
by the
to
acting
20
Chief of Army Staff.
200 hours, 5 p.m. this evening.
Well, it's been a very solemn ceremony here at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, where the burial arrangements have indeed kicked off earnestly, you want to say. Well, from Lagos, we did see the plane land, a C-130 Nigerian Air Force NAF 918 aircraft, bringing the remains to the Federal Capital Territory, where the rest of the burial arrangements will be taking place, including a service of songs.
Many thanks to our correspondent, Ferdinand Duroha, live from Abuja, who's been narrating to us about the proceedings concerning the laying to rest of the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja. May he so rest in peace.